Had some free time this week at work. Started thinking, about our HR department and kind of why I stick them with the marketing department more so than the management departments. And that's something, that I've thought for a little bit. So I sat down, started looking through it. How do you get the two to meet? Made 3 pages worth of notes. And I'm going to say this: most people only really deal with your HR department when you get hired, the occasional promotion, and when your services are no longer required. We'll put it that way. So it's a very rare occurrence. But if so I started looking at HRs under the marketing umbrella, more so. It's definitely been something the last 4 or 5 years where, people, especially at where I'm currently at, there's been a huge turnover. So I sat down and looked at the 7 functions of marketing, and I kind of flipped that and put it on the hiring process, just to kind of show how this works out. And I'll also say that onboarding people is expensive. I know when I was still a store manager, just bringing on like the average person was $3,000, and that was without drug testing or anything else. Once you figure in drug testing and as well as the teaching aspect, it gets really expensive really quick. But yeah, I think there's a lot of thoughts that I have throughout this. You'll see some of them, you won't see others. And some kind of repeat themselves over time. The first point is marketing information management. This would translate out to the information that helps understand the customer's needs. But for HR, it'd obviously be the employee's needs. Traditionally, you'd look at market research reports, ask your sales teams for feedback, monitor social media, etc. Even just having the open door policy where employees can freely talk about what is happening in their current workspace can help, but also where they can both say where they want to be currently or where they'd like to go within the companies. And if you can provide them a direct path to that, or the most direct as possible path in getting it that way. Sometimes it's really weird, sometimes it's unattainable. But if you're able to sit and say, hey, if you want to be in job X, you have to do LMNOP and get through it. And sometimes it's really easy. For other jobs, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. In short, I would ask what employees need to stay happy and with the company for the immediate short term, the short term, and the long term. Every person is going to be different, and every company is going to have different things that they can offer. Retaining good employees is very cost effective. In the long run, it's just lower onboarding costs, it's lower training costs. Trust me when I say this. I was a store manager before I was at my current job, and finding people was extremely difficult. Getting them just into the door was really difficult. I've got a separate video that maybe later about what to do when you're looking for a job. But if you're an HR department, keeping people in the door is just as important, is getting them through the doors and making the applications. But definitely ask, what, how do we lower the turnover rates? I've seen companies with 600-700% turnover rates, and that's just not attainable. It's you're spending more time training than you probably are, looking at retention rates. The next point is distribution. What are you trying to do? Are you doing / trying to find people to do versus where it is? Remember in school when you had to do like the research papers and it was the who, what, where, when, why, and how? You kind of have to do the same thing. So not every job or occupation is going to have people willing to apply for that job. It's also really hard to sell, say, agricultural tractors in the middle of a major city like New York, Minneapolis, LA, you could do it, but it's not going to work real well. And it's certain jobs just aren't going to be attracting people. Like you're probably not going to find someone that wants to be a stockbroker, in their 40s and in a rural community. Most of the time, you might be able to get some of the kids, but kind of looking at, even what the job is, what does it pay in that area, and you kind of have to look at where people would be willing to go to. For where you're at. For right now where I work, we literally have a competitor that we can see across the street. We have 3 more competitors within 3 miles. In a 5-mile radius, I know of 15 other companies doing the exact same thing. And when I was originally hired about a year ago, where I'm working paid more. Now that's not the case. And so it's kind of a thing where it's going to be hard to keep people where we're at, and we're starting to see it. We just lost a couple of people, actually about 3 of our upper management to another competitor. That's only, let's see, probably 5 miles, if that, away. It's a 5-mile drive at least from where we're at to where they went, and they made a fair decision, I feel. Obviously the company that I work for didn't do a good job at retaining them, which, it kind of comes down to that 7 factors, but now they're gonna have to find someone to take that over. For the next point, product or service management. What are people qualified to do? What other companies exist in the area? And for the job that I'm in, almost anyone can do it. The only requirements, 18 years old, and you have to have a high school diploma, I think. Those are the 2 requirements for the job. And so that's kind of anywhere. You can get, with those 2 things, you can get a job just about anywhere. And like I had said previously, we had 2 upper management leave for a competitor. And it's unfortunate that we lost them. I know that they're going to do awesome where they went, and I'm just going to leave it kind of there, kind of open-ended. So finding people to fill jobs can be very difficult. And other things are going to be easier to fill or maintain jobs. If I was in HR today, I would look at what the company that I work for is paying for that job, and look at very similar jobs or the exact same job at companies really close by. If you have a competitor across the street, you have to be basically step for step with them, not only in marketing but in HR. And if you don't, you're gonna have a huge turnover rate. And the thing is pay isn't just what you're financially paying them. It's also the home life balance, paid time off, paid breaks, discounts, even just how bonuses are treated. And maybe it's not a financial bonus, maybe it's you give them free breakfast or something every week. That's something that you have to look at. And companies need to see how to retain their employees as time passes. And I think they learn more within business, gain educational knowledge, have changes in interest, your career path, and maybe just the job. And one thing to look at is there vertical movement in the company? Is it worth staying? The company I originally started at, there wasn't really too much. I mean, I went from being, the person that just walked in the door, the new guy. 13 years later, I was the manager of a store. But really above that, there was nothing to have. There was, my district manager was my boss. Above him would have been our operations manager, the VP of the company, and then the CEO. So there's only 4 spots to go up, and it's not likely that I would ever get to the CEO point, ever. So there's a lot of horizontal movement, and I could have gone across the company. I could probably still be with the company today, but it wasn't worth it for me, and it wasn't in my best interest. And after kind of seeing some of the stuff that's going on, I'm very happy that I'm gone. And I think a lot of other people are trying to stay as long as they can, but they're also kind of in that same boat of, it's time to leave. So, it's the movement thing. Ooh, speaking of movement, high school students and college students are not likely to stay long. Because of things like higher education, less restrictions on what they can or are able to do, whether it's legally or just educationally. Movement, whether it's, they might want to move across the country from where they live. If you're in a rural community and there's nothing really to keep your staff there, if they're just high school students, you're going to have to find a way to get, to keep training every year. And this has been something that's been going on for a long time, especially in the farming communities. It's hard to keep the high school students, but you can keep them. It's just really difficult. And they're going to be offered different opportunities, whether it's going to school, maybe they move closer to the cities, for better jobs, better pay. And if they start out at a fairly low point in the company, they will eventually want to move up in the company. And if they're not able to, they're just going to leave. So, not only creating value, but also creating a space for them. And it's not just slapping a title on them. They're also going to want compensation for it, which I think that's the next point, which is pricing, kind of payrolls, benefits, paid, unpaid, and competitiveness. So like it is in that title, you have to look at things like wages, paid versus unpaid breaks, your insurance coverage, whether that's dental, medical, on and on and on, your vacation policies, your bonuses, what other companies are doing, both inside and outside of your industry. And it can be very tricky because HR is not only has to attract new employees, they have to try and keep their old ones and retain them. Most of what we've heard, and I remember hearing this for years, was you should change jobs every 2 to 5 years. Just because the pay raises from moving will outpace your raises staying. And that's kind of a problem, I think. And I know if I would have left the company I was at, I would have made significantly more. And when I did leave, I went from being a store manager to just someone that stocks shelves for a company. I make more money stocking shelves than I did as the manager of a company, of one of their stores, store manager for a company. And the thing is, it's not just about the hourly wage. Maybe it's you force them to take an unpaid break, let them have a paid break instead. Getting either more insurance options or better coverages. This helps out a lot, especially, as you see changing things. You have to be competitive in the market. You can have increases in vacation policy or leniency within that vacation policy. You can have bonuses. Are you paying enough to keep people happy and coming through the door? Are the benefits of working there versus that of, other companies the same? How do you increase your value and keep your employees happy to keep them working there? That's something. So, and while we're on the topic kind of pricing and pay, minimum wage is what a company is mandated to pay. They cannot legally pay the average person less. Okay? Now, there's what I call the minimum industry or location pay. And what that is, it's what other companies are paying just to get people through the door. So, you know, if you ever hear, you know, if I ever hear my boss say, well, you make over minimum wage, you know, well, you pay less than competitor X, is what I always kind of snap back with. And usually they're not happy with it. But, you know, and that saying does do that. You know, and kind of an example that I've been going with is, you know, if company X pays 15, but, you know, company A and B over there are paying 17 to do basically the same job, you know, people are going to probably go from company X to A and B. Now, let's say Little Jimmy's Donuts is paying people $11 an hour because that's minimum wage. You're not going to find people applying for Little Jimmy's or Little Jim's Donuts. You know, it's just, you have to pay what everyone else is paying, and it's going to drive up your cost. But that's just what you have to do. Because otherwise you're going to have no one willing to work for you, or you'll have such a high turnover rate. It won't be worth much of your time. So, and when I started working for the company that I used to work for, at 16, we were paid 50% over minimum wage. And by the time I left, you know, in the revolving door of people and stuff, you know, I should have left at year 5, but I was making just over, I was only making about 25% over minimum wage. So I should have left significantly earlier than I did. Kind of looking back, it's the one regret that I have for staying was, you know, yeah, the owners and stuff were okay. You know, my district manager was awesome. The job was easy, but pay-wise, I feel like I left a lot on the table. And so yeah, I should have left, you know, 2012 to 2015, which, you know, it's unfortunate, but you know, it kind of is what it is. I stayed too long. I kind of, you know, I lost some money, and I kind of learned. So the next point, all right, let's try that again since the GoPro just cut off. So promotion, you know, how do you find or make people aware of your job posting? Shove you in there really good. You know, I found out about my job because they had shoved a piece of paper up on a window. I was able to follow a quick link. That quick link, then, you know, you go through the steps, and it was really simple. People understood it. I understood what it was. And trust me, I used the KISS methodology in this. Keep it stupid simple. You know, and put it where you want the people to see it. And this could be social media, job boards, print or digital newspapers, industrial you know, the industry magazines. What HR needs to ask is, how are qualified, or, you know, the targeted people you want for this job going to see it, and how are they going to apply? If it's on a digital platform, you put the thing on right away, and boom, they got it, you know, in a few seconds. You know, the next point beyond that, you know, promotion would be selling it. How are your, you know, what are some complementary functions outside of pricing? You know, building both positive awareness and preference for your company is going to take the time and effort out. You know, look at why people are willing to work, you know, for that company or for that location. You know, what keeps them there? You know, how do you increase that? You know, keeping them there and people looking for a job there. You know, it's, you know, how do you market the company to potential employees, you know, and customers at the same time? It's going to be really difficult because customers are going to want the cheapest or the best value. But the thing is, your employees want the same thing, is they want that best value, which is higher wages. And that's kind of going to be something. So you're going to have to sit down and kind of figure out that selling point. What are your selling points for working for the company? And what are, you know, other companies doing that maybe you can add to it? All right, let's try this again. Since the GoPro likes to overheat, I'm going to try and do this quickly. Financing. This is going to be really hard to do on all scales of business. I know the company that I currently work for also has a partnership with a bank, and you can get a lot of discounts. Mortgages on your house, car loans, etc. You know, and this is something that for some places it might only mean an employee discount, as it is a low, you know, basically just charge the cost of the items. And but it's going to be difficult. I don't know how to do the pricing one. It was tough, but finding a way to have incentivized pricing, I think, outside of payroll, and that's going to be one of them. So looking at both, I'm going to turn the air up a little bit, shut that off. Hopefully you guys can still hear me. But figuring that out, and if you can get these 7 down, it hopefully helps. I know I've been looking for a new job recently, and it's a little bit different now. You know, when I was looking for my job, the current job, there wasn't a lot of, you know, competition out there. Like, I just went, saw there was a job, applied for it on a Friday, might have been on Monday. You know, I basically had a job within a week. Now I'm being a little bit more picky, because I can be. And part of it is pricing, part of it's, you know, a lot of other things. But you guys have a good rest of your day. Hopefully the camera doesn't overheat. I'm gonna let it cool down for a bit. If you have any comments on this, drop them down below, and please share this. You know, and hopefully I can continue making more of these in the future. Have a good day.